Hey, lovely ones. Before you dive in, I've got something exciting to share. My brand new offering, The Knowing, a one-to-one mind-body coaching experience, is coming soon. If you want to be first in the know, the waitlist is open and the link is in the show notes. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to Define, the podcast about the moments that shape us. I'm your host, Maddie, life coach, yoga teacher, and curious soul. Each episode, I speak to someone about a defining moment in their life, the kind that flipped their world upside down, cracked them open, and led them on a journey they never expected. This isn't about headlines or hero stories. It's about real life, real shifts, and what it takes to rebuild after the break. So let's get into it. Hi, Alicia. Welcome to Define.
Thank you for having me.
How are you coming into our space today?
I feel very energized for this talk. I feel like nearing the end, well, not nearing the end, it's the last day of October. Clocks have just gone back, adjusting to earlier mornings, but earlier evenings, kind of finding a good routine. So yeah, I really like autumn. So I feel ready for this season. Yeah.
I love that because autumn definitely feels like a time of year where we are not so kind of out and about. We're kind of bedding in, but we're doing a lot of like reflection. And I genuinely feel there's a sense that everyone I'm speaking to is feeling really energized this autumn. So like I think there's like a shift going on where people are not so burnt out by the summer and are kind of ready to sow those seeds maybe for the new year.
I agree. And I think it's about like finding the beauty in every season, isn't it? It's like autumn. I feel like when I go on walks and things like that, I'm so much more present because I'm actually looking at all the beautiful colours, the leaves, like, the leaves that have fallen on the floor. And I just feel much more like present for some reason in autumn, which I love. And also obviously in this country, a nice Sunday roast on, look forward to Sundays. Sometimes so when Sunday comes around, you think, oh no, it's Monday the next day. But there's something sometimes in autumn where you're like, oh no, we can go to a pub and we can have a nice roast and it's getting dark and it's all cozy and, Christmas is coming.
I love it. You should be like marketing for the seasons.
Yeah. Is that a job?
It can be. We'll make it a job. Yeah, it's awesome that we've been able to come together for this. And I think full disclosure for listeners, we actually tried to record this last week and we spent the entire 2 hours nattering and just catching up, which I think speaks volumes about our relationship. So we are here and we are very focused today to record this podcast. So I think, for a bit of context for those listening, we have had I don't even know how to describe this, like quite an incredible way that we became friends and we became connected. And I don't know do you want to share? You can share that if you like.
A bit of both. We met in one of our first, I guess, jobs together when we were kind of finding ourselves. So it's probably quite a pivotal topic to discuss, really. Yeah, we were kind of finding our feet. I actually think I was just an intern.
I think I was as well.
Yeah.
So for context, we both started out in fashion, which makes me laugh because when Alicia tells you where she works and obviously the work that I do, it couldn't be further from it. And I think we were both unpaid interns at a fashion house in London, both kind of, I think, like very early 20s, I would say. And kind of, I think if you've seen the film Devil Wears Prada, that's quite an accurate representation of that period of our lives.
Yeah, 100%. Navigating kind of that vulnerable bit in your early 20s where you're kind of being you're being taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
And we kind of like, I guess we bonded over like a little bit of trauma, But also like, I think it's amazing and it's like a real testament to our friendship that actually like we gelled over that because it could have gone very differently. Like, we could have quickly been like, this isn't for me, I can't do it. But, I think we took the time to really like be there and understand actually what is it that we want from future jobs? What is it that we don't want? More like, as you say, it's quite interesting. We've both ended up in the mental health field. Says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, we did a bit of a 180. So that was a little bit about how we came connected, but I'd love it if you could just share a little bit about like who you are and anything that you'd be happy to share.
Yeah, of course. So I started off in fashion. I mean, straight out of school, I was probably the only one of all of my friends that didn't go to uni, which actually was quite rare at that time. I always knew that like I was kind of done with education, but there was always it was quite tricky at the time. I still went and viewed unis just like my friends did. It was one of those moments where it's like something you think you should be doing, but I always knew in my gut, actually, I don't think this is for me. I think I want to go straight into work. But I mean, then that comes with all those conversations with parents when your parents might have an expectation that you should be going to uni. And my dad definitely did. You know, he'd make me go to all the open days, and I'd be at the open days and be like, I just can't see myself here. Like, this just isn't for me. And I felt like I went completely against the grain and got a job or interned instead. And I remember always being like, I want to make a point that you don't have to go to uni to be successful. And I think that's where my drive kind of came from. And as you said, we both started in fashion, which I actually do not regret whatsoever, because I think it gave, or I don't know about you, but me, it gave me amazing kind of footing being that young as well, straight into the world of work, being like, actually, let me try all of these things out to see what is and what isn't for me, because how else would I know? And then, you know, you meet so many people across the way, you network. The opportunities for me working, I would say, were probably more pivotal and more, you know, life affirming than probably sitting in a university lecture hall. For me, anyway, you know, don't get me wrong, other people might have way preferred being at uni, but for me, that was the only way I could see myself growing. So yeah, interned in fashion, in PR, realized I was not cut out for that whatsoever. I was just not a cutthroat person. And I thought, you know, if I want a career, I think I need to kind of look elsewhere. And then my dad was always in property. So he would buy kind of old properties, renovate them, and then let them out on the long term. And I started kind of shadowing him and being like, actually, this is quite interesting. And working in London, I thought, you know, property is probably quite a good career to be in. Ended up working for a property developer. Long story cut short, I did that for about 10 years. But actually, again, in those 10 years, I was miserable. But, you know, it's another classic example of what you think you should be doing, climbing the corporate ladder, getting a good salary, being paid well. But you soon realize none of that matters when you're feeling awful every day, crying, going into the office, you know, just feeling not good enough. And honestly, you could be on a 6-figure salary and just be miserable every single day. And that is something I really took from that. And I think when COVID hit, I'm sure for a lot of us, we really took that as a lot of self-reflection, didn't we? And thought, actually, because we all didn't have a choice but to slow down, which for me, obviously COVID itself was awful, but the pandemic gave me no choice but to actually be like, this isn't what I want. And I do sometimes wonder, like, if COVID hadn't have happened, would a lot of us still be doing the things that we might not want to be doing?
I think so. Yeah, I think that I really agree with that. I think that people, you know, obviously the pandemic was very traumatic in many ways for many people, but in other ways, people were really able to start finding themselves and figuring out, and whether it was through their career or their relationships or their hobbies or whatever it was, they were really cementing into like, what do I actually want? What brings me joy? Where do I actually want to spend my time? And I think that's why so many people now like work reduced days, or they have more flexibility, or they went self-employed, or they, like you, kind of really took that moment to review what it is that they want to do.
I agree. And it's like, you know, even like commuting 5 days a week every day, it's like putting an unbelievable amount of stress onto your body. But before COVID was a thing, that was just what you did. There were no questions asked about it. It was just, that's just the way, you know, the world worked in terms of, you know, the corporate environment. Like working from home wasn't even a thing. I don't ever remember, you know, having a laptop and taking it home. It just wasn't a thing. So actually,
It's wild, isn't it?
it's wild.
I have this really distinct memory. I used to work at university, for those listening, if you didn't know. And I remember asking for some time in London to go and like support family. And I was going to work and I was going to do my work there. And I was just told, you have to take annual leave.
Mm.
And that's just so wild to me now, because I know that for sure that just wouldn't be a thing. You just take your laptop and go, as long as your work's getting done.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the exact same thing. You know, my dad became very unwell when I was in my late teens. You have this immense amount of pressure and like guilt in the workplace that like, if you're not there, then, you know, I don't even know what it is, but it's like time I knew I was never, ever going to get back. And sometimes when I look back, I'm kind of angry at myself for feeling guilt towards saying to my manager, I'm not going to be able to come back tomorrow. And I'd be getting messages like, when are you coming back? And I'm like, I don't know. And also, that's just not how this should be working. You should be saying to me, take as much time as you need. But now this is what I'm trying to say. The beauty of flexible working means healthier work-life balance, improved mental health, hopefully. That's a lot I took from it. And like one thing I really wanted to bring to this conversation today was really women's health, because I think for me, a lot of it has gone either unheard or just meant to be a part of your life, because I lived my life on such high stress all the time. I thought that was just how I was. So actually, when COVID hit and I took time to be at home more, to be present more, being more in tune with my body, I thought actually, maybe being severely anxious, irritable, and angry a week every month before my period, is that normal? Have I been living a life where that's just how women are? Oh, you're just moody. Oh, you're due on your period. Oh, here it comes, kind of thing. And I thought, actually, like, why are we living like this? And that is the period where I really, really, really was like, I need to do something about this. Yeah.
And so I feel like you've lined us up beautifully. So could you give us a flavor for what your defining moment is? Or do you feel like, yeah, give us a flavor for what your defining moment or defining period is?
So a bit of background context. I was always what you would call maybe like a moody teenager. I never kind of felt, I was miserable quite a lot. And it was always like, oh, she's going through puberty, or there was always an excuse, which I'm not blaming anyone for. And as parents, I'm sure it's very hard. And I think when we were at school, I don't think kind of gynecological issues, women's health, periods were seen as that important or that spoken about.
Absolutely not. I
Yeah.
don't recall ever being taught in the very crappy, let's be honest, like physical, like social education
Mhm.
type classes that you have anything about women's health or women being the center. We were taught about condoms. Like it was all male focused.
Yeah, exactly. And think about how young we are when we get our periods, right? It's so confusing. And we're at that period of our life where we're like trying to establish who we are, make friends. You want to look good at that age, don't you? You want to be cool. You want to, but then you get your period and your hormones are all over the place. But yet no one talks to you about it. And it's this internal battle where you just feel like you're going crazy. And I think that's where it all started for me, is that I felt completely unheard, and that actually stupid. If you were to talk about that at school to your teacher, or even maybe like at home, I don't know, like I'm grateful. I have parents who are, understanding and caring. My mum probably more to a certain degree, but that's probably quite normal as a woman. But I was stuck on the pill when I was about 14, because we were all told that would fix your problems. So was on the pill for like, I don't know, 15 years. So most women don't even know their own cycles, which blows my mind. A lot of friends who I speak to, a lot of colleagues, whatever, who have been on the pill for years actually have no idea how their body works, because just been taking this synthetic hormone for most of their teenage life, adolescent, and now even adult life, to the point where like people are actually nervous to come off of it now, when we're at a time where we're probably thinking about fertility.
It's so like everything you're saying, I'm just nodding away, because this is like the experience of every woman I know has been on some sort of contraception that they were stuck on when they were 16 and now they're in their 30s. And I think, my God, like medicine research has probably changed hugely in those like 15 to 20 years. And we're still on that pill that probably is having side effects. I had a friend who had been on microgynon. I think most women will know that pill for nearly 20 years. And she came off it and she was like, I did not know myself because of the side effects. There's so many different effects that come along with that contraception. And obviously, like, there's a level of like being grateful for the NHS and having that access to that for free. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's right that at 16 you're put on something and you're just told, like, there you go, deal with it for the next however many years.
You're kind of left to your own device to figure out what the hell is wrong with you. I remember just thinking like, this isn't right. Like, I don't feel right. And I'm still on that journey today. And I know for every woman, it's not linear and it's not a one size fits all. So I do empathize with medical professionals in that sense, that I totally get that every woman presenting with different issues, you can't just give the same pill to everybody, right? But at the same time, every time I'd go back to the GP, they'd give me a different pill to try. I must have been on 8 or 9 different pills before I eventually came off it about 2 years ago for good. But not one GP actually said that to me. Have you ever thought about actually coming off it and getting to know your body? It's about what can we give you next?
Yeah, I worry this might be totally my interpretation. So this is just like what I think. But I sometimes would worry that doctors would encourage you to stay on contraception because it would probably cost the NHS more if you got pregnant and you didn't want to keep that pregnancy. And that's quite scary, really, that there's so much pressure on the woman to then remain with that pill that maybe isn't working for them. And I would love for you to, if you're happy to share, like to talk to us a little bit about what you were experiencing when you were like on those different pills, how that showed up for you.
So I now know it as PMDD. So if people aren't aware of PMDD, it's premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And it's spoken about a hell of a lot more now on social media. People might be aware of people like Vicky Patterson talking about it a lot, advocating in Parliament, etc. Which is basically, it's usually a week before your period, but it can be up to 2 weeks of what I would only describe as a cloud forming over you. And you lose all sense of rationality, all sense of like, you just become very detached from the world. It's the only way I can explain it. Everything annoys you. So it affects relationships with partners, with family. You're very irritable. You're very down. You know, it's hard to actually function, to actually want to get up, get dressed, go out. It's probably a level of depression in a way. But for me, it was probably came out as maybe anxiety quite a lot, which I'm still dealing with now. And then maybe day 1 or 2 of your period, you do feel like a physical cloud just lifting and it slowly passes. But then what happens is you get into this kind of cyclical fear that it's just going to happen again. So then the other 2 weeks where you're okay, you're then anxious about it happening again. And this is what it's only taken for me to come off the pill, all through my own thought, not from anyone telling me to do so, for me to understand what is actually going on. And I just still think, which is such a shame, that it's just still, there is a level of stigma with women speaking about this. And I am so open with it. I'm such an advocate for talking about it in the workplace. I have to have workplace adjustments because as a woman, you are not productive in certain phases of your cycle. You're not as productive as you would be in other phases. So your workload should not be the same. And I'm such an advocate for pushing that. And there's a taboo that, we might look lazy or we might look like we can't be bothered. But actually, just being able to get up in the morning and get dressed, have your breakfast and sit down is an achievement for some women, especially if you experience PMDD. So there's just so much that I feel still needs to change. Just an example as I gave you. And yeah, again, I didn't realize until I came off the pill that I also have endometriosis, which is like tissue that grows kind of outside of your womb in different places, which can cause, it's a very, very broad spectrum endometriosis. So if people aren't aware, it can be anything from mild bloating, discomfort, inflammation, heavy periods, fatigue, joint pain, all the way up to certain women who are actually wheelchair bound because of symptoms of endometriosis. And I think I might be wrong. I think 1 in 6 women have endometriosis, but a lot of it goes misdiagnosed because, like I'm talking about, that's just something we are as women, Men's hormones, I believe, what's the word I'm looking for? Every 24 hours, men's hormones reset. Right?
Yeah, I've not heard that, but I'm just laughing because I'm like, probably, of course they do.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously, they do. And I sometimes sit and I wonder, what must that feel like? To feel pretty level most days. I'm not disregarding like men experiencing kind of poor mental health and things like that. I'm just talking from like a woman's point of view. If I'm totally honest, sometimes I resent men. Like, sometimes I will say to my partner, like, how does it feel to not be like this so often? How I'm genuinely jealous sometimes.
yeah,
You know?
I remember saying that, like, when I feel anxious, I'll say to my partner, what are you thinking about right now? And he'll say something completely random, like something to do with history or like something he's going to eat later. And I'm like, wow, I'm overthinking. Or like definitely in the past as well, I'll be like, oh, well, I'm overthinking that one thing I said to that person I didn't know. And if they were offended by it,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's like 100% linked to women's health, but I think women's health does have such a huge part of this conversation, and the disparity as well, like that you were just talking about, how that women's mental health isn't even discussed or considered at school, in the workplace, when we compete in sport, when we, do you know what I mean? Like for a long time, I remember going to see a personal trainer in my 20s and saying like, I would like to work with my cycle. And they had no idea. Like they just did not know how to tailor a workout series to be in sync with my cycle. There was like no appreciation that we have weeks where we're just not going to be able to or want to lift as heavy or want to do such intensive workouts. And then there's going to be weeks where we're like absolutely pumped to do it. So I think this is just such an important space to be in. And I'm so glad that you're bringing this conversation to the table.
Yeah. And I think that's not even how you're feeling. Like there are stats that show that, you get muscle weakness during certain parts of your cycle. On your period, you shouldn't be doing cardio. Like you're losing blood, you should be doing things according to your cycle. And I think there might be a lot of people out there who think it's a little bit woo-woo, but this is a real thing. Like I think a lot of women don't realize that we are so different. We're a very cyclical gender. We have to work with our bodies a lot more. And I think my defining moment is probably coming off the pill, because I'm understanding my body. I'm understanding, actually, I can't make all those plans at that certain time of my period because I won't enjoy it. But that's fine. I'll make the plans when I'm feeling more energetic and more confident in myself. And I'll know that if I go then, I'll enjoy it more. And that's perfectly okay. But for some reason, I'm grateful that I've got great family and friends where I could probably say to them, I'm really not feeling it right now. I'm due on my period. But I'm sure there's plenty of women out there who have to put on a brave face and walk out that door and just carry on as if they don't feel a thing. And it makes me really sad. It does make me really sad. And I think there's just so much more that could be done and could be spoken about, hence wanting to bring that here.
Yeah, like I said, I'm so grateful for you bringing this, because it's not like I think it is coming to the forefront. And like you said, I think especially like on social media, depending on the types of people you follow, there is a conversation starting, but it's like we're still in the early stages. But I'd love to know a little bit more about just in those moments or those, weeks or months before you came off the pill, like what led you to that point?
It's a really good question, because I think, well, one was, probably another big defining moment for me was that I was leaving an 11-year toxic relationship. That was for me, my twin sister had just got engaged and I was moving back in with my mum. It couldn't have been more polar opposites. And, they say, you have to hit rock bottom sometimes in life to kind of bring yourself back up. But for me, that is genuinely what happened. I had to leave a relationship. I had no choice. I literally was just like, I can't do this anymore. I packed a bag and I left. We had a mortgage together. We had a house. I left with nothing except just like clothes. And I promised myself, like, this will be my time to like work on myself. For so many years, I just spent so many years thinking about other people, whether that was my ex-partner, thinking, what is going so wrong in this relationship? How can I make it better? But it was never about, how can I better my, what about me being selfish, right? Like, so this was my time to be selfish. This was my time to be like, I'm going to make all these changes. I left the relationship, came off the pill, like literally everything as drastic as possible to just restart and start again. And it's hard work, because I went to so many gynecologists and professionals, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of other women who can say the same. And so many gynecologists, who were also women, let me say, said to me, just go and have a baby and it will sort out your hormones. It will balance you out. Just have a baby.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
What
honestly.
the hell?
I've
never heard that before.
Yeah. I'd be
Wow.
so surprised if I didn't hear another woman say that they'd had the same said to them. Because don't get me wrong, there are probably stats out there that do show with endometriosis, with inflammation, with hormone imbalances, if you get pregnant, it like kind of evens it out because you don't have a period and whatever. And I'm sure there's evidence to suggest that will work. But in that moment, as like I don't even know how old I was then, 27-year-old girl who was just leaving a relationship, to be told, just go and have a baby, was literally the worst thing somebody could have said to me at that time. And I left the appointment, and it was a private appointment that I had paid for, just crying my eyes out, thinking that like, well, that's it. I'm done, aren't I? I don't have a partner. I've just been told if I don't have a baby, I'm never going to be cured. And I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. So there's just so much, whether it's misinformation or just confusing information for women, there is a lot out there. And I think on your point of like social media, I am noticing like there's a lot of influencers and women talking a lot more openly about it. And I'm so here for it. I really am. But it's a very personal journey, and it's very lonely as well. It's very, very lonely. And I'm sure I can speak on behalf of a lot of women who sometimes feel like it's only them going through it. And you feel like a psycho. You feel like no one else gets me. I'm a weirdo. I'm a psycho. No one likes me. Honestly, some of the thoughts during this PMDD phase are so insane and just wild that, sometimes you're like, if somebody could have a microscope into my head or like a magnifying glass, whatever, they'd literally be like, is she okay with the thoughts that circulate? But I don't even think women need to have PMDD to go through phases like that. I don't know about you, but I think most women can probably relate to a lot of what I'm saying, maybe not to such a drastic level, but
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that's like shining through, and this is like how it's affecting me personally, I think a lot of what you're saying is like incredibly important, is just that we're never taught or we're never invited to just understand ourselves a bit deeper. Like this is kind of where you started the conversation, and it's really made me think, okay, so I can really relate to what you were just saying. I use an app I do track my cycle. And then I'll have like a week or 5 days before my cycle where I will feel rock bottom. I will feel miserable. I'll be like really deeply affected and sensitive about everything. And then I'm like, I'll look at my app and I'm, oh, okay, my period's due. But like, that's probably the extent that most of us have that awareness. And we're never, like I said, invited or taught on how to maybe support ourselves through that. So maybe, and I don't know, but maybe it's like we need softening at that time. We don't need to push ourselves when we're feeling that vulnerable. And that's just feels like such a gap. And, for half the population to not be deeply aware of this feels like such a disservice to women and such a, like, just where is that? Such a gap. I want to go back for a moment and talk about something which you said about what spurred on this transition for you was kind of hitting that rock bottom. And this word like really has been popping up for me, which is like reclaim, like taking control and reclaim. And I'm wondering how that resonates for you.
Oh, I really resonate with that. I think for so many years I was in this relationship. Like we met when we were 17. We were so young. I went through so much. Like I lost my dad when I was 19. There were so many times where I knew the relationship didn't work, right? But for some reason I just kept thinking, no, this is what relationships are. They're not easy. They're not. He was not around at all when my dad passed away. Like just situations like that. He was never present, never showed up for me, was never, when I needed him most, he was just never there. And I'm not saying I was the perfect partner, but for so many years, I was criticizing myself. Like, what have I done wrong? Like, just in that little, you know what? I actually didn't even see most of it until you remove yourself from that bubble. And I really, really empathize with so many people out there that stay in a relationship because it's scarier to leave. It's so much easier to stay comfortable in a relationship, even though you're not comfortable, right? And I'm probably not making any sense, but it gets to a point, well, for me, it got to a point where I was physically unwell. And I thought, I can't do this to me. Like, it's selfish of me. I lost my dad through quite a traumatic way. His life got cut short through nothing he did, like, you know. And I think, what am I doing? I'm doing him a disservice by living my life unhealthily and unhappily. Like, I deserve more than this. I really genuinely just got to that point where I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm just not doing this anymore. I want to reclaim my life back. I really, really do. And there was a saying that my therapist said to me, and I still think about it to this day, where she said, there's nothing lonelier than being in the wrong relationship rather than being on your own. And for me, I was like, that is so true, because to the outside world, being in a relationship is like, it's like the be all and end all. It's like, for a lot of women, it's like the end goal of being with a partner, getting married, having kids, owning a home, whatever. But there's nothing lonelier than having all of that baggage and being completely miserable, right? Whereas if you're on your own, you have no one to answer to. You can be totally selfish. And I urge everybody to just be on their own for as long as possible before dating or finding someone, because for me, that was the best thing I ever gave myself, was being single. And it didn't last as long as I thought it would be. Trust me. I have a ring on my finger now. But I never had that time. I never was just fully present with how I feel and what I want from a partner and from life. And it was just, it was like a little revelation for me. It really was.
God, I had goosebumps through so much of what you were saying then. And there are so many like threads I want to pick at there, because I think there's just so many like beautiful things you just said. The first one about, oh God, where to begin? Okay. So I know we're slightly going off women's health, but I think you just said some really crucial things that I believe deeply, deeply in. And I think the women I work with, we learn and we talk about, and it's so important. And I actually think we touched on this earlier when we were talking about people climbing a ladder and trying to get to like, oh, I'm going to get to 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever their goal is, particularly like in London. And with this goal life, like people stay in situations because they are scared, right? And you've experienced that yourself. I've experienced that. And it is freaking terrifying. Like, especially when you've built a life of some sort with someone, like you had a mortgage, you were with this partner for a really long time, and it seems terrifying. And if we can build the resilience and get to a point where we can be brave enough to take that step, like, yeah, the initial shock is so hard. It is, like, we can't doubt that. And also, like, I think both of us have been very fortunate. We have privilege. Like, you were able to go and stay with your mum. Like, we have support networks around us. Like, not everyone has that. But what is on the other side of that, like you said, is true respect for yourself, like self-trust, self-love, and actually leads me beautifully on. You get to that point and things do start to align. And I'm not saying like everyone's just going to suddenly meet the partner of their dreams. Like, that happened for you and that's so beautiful. But for some people, actually, it's a realization that that isn't what I want, or, it could go in many different directions, or actually they realize, they were not pursuing a creative pursuit that suddenly becomes their life. I think your urge to people, and it's so right, is like, invest in yourself. We sometimes think we're investing in ourselves by like distracting ourselves by dating or however it shows up, getting the new job, but actually like sitting with yourself like you did is the biggest unlock that I think anyone can ever go through.
Yeah, it's the most powerful thing. And you say we're going off topic on women's health slightly, but in a way, it's all completely relatable. It's when you leave a relationship, we have a natural instinct as women to be like, oh, I might get left on the shelf and then I might miss the boat to have children or get married. I said earlier, my twin sister was planning her wedding the day I moved back in with my mum. It's like I couldn't have felt worse if I tried. There were like engagement cards coming through the post as I'm literally being picked up off the floor by my mum in like a mess, I needed that to happen. I needed to go through that, because until you experience those feelings, you can't pick yourself back up and be like, do you know what? Like, I deserve more than this. So what is it that I actually want? For so long, I was exhausted of like giving my all to somebody else, right? And it's like, actually, now I know relationships exist where you just don't need to do that. That is not what a relationship should be like. A relationship should
I feel
be.
like we need to say that again for anyone listening.
Yeah. No,
Like, a
seriously.
relationship does not have to be like you giving your all the time to that person.
No, and it's the biggest.
Absolutely.
It was like a spark that kind of went off in my head that was like, you will never find the right relationship until you are content within yourself, right? And a relationship should not be, you should not rely on your partner for anything. It should all come from you, but your partner should be a bonus. Your partner should lift you. Your partner should be there to push you and to challenge you. I agree, but also sing your praises, let you feel shit when you feel shit, like run a bath for you when you know, are feeling really run down, get you a hot water bottle. Like, that is what a relationship should be like. It should not be you saying to yourself, what have I done wrong here for that person to behave in that way? It's just, yeah, it's just blows my mind how much of a in a different place I am with relationships now. And I believe that I found that person because I did that, you know. I took that step back and I was like, what is it that I want? Like, it's okay to be like, what is it that serves me? Stop being that person that just gives to everybody else. Just stop it.
Yeah, it's like you became this more expanded, self-reliant, self-trusting, self-love version of yourself. So there wasn't any room for someone to come in and be in the space that you were in before, because there's just no way this version of you was going to attract or allow that to happen, which is beautiful. And so to just get back to this defining period, so you come off the pill, you're starting to like reclaim your power. What kind of unfolds next? Like, how do you get to kind of where you are now?
Well, I moved back in with my mum. So I kind of got rid of like a lot of responsibilities, I guess. I guess I kind of had to go back into like a little bit like a, you know, childlike in a way, because in a way that is kind of starting again because you're growing again. You know, it's like a beginning, right? And again, like the stigma of like moving back in with your mum, you know, at the age that I was when everyone's kind of buying their homes and whatever they're doing, right? I first of all found a really, really good therapist. I've dipped in and out of I'm a massive advocate for therapy. I've dipped in and out of therapy like my whole adolescent, adult life. Absolutely love it. Like, it really, what I would say is therapy made me leave that relationship. Like, that gave me just the boost I needed to understand that that wasn't right for me. I found an amazing therapist, which was like my anchor. So, you know, every Wednesday, I think I saw her, and I knew that if I was having a tough time, I would put that in my little Wednesday box and I'd take it to my sessions with her. I would give that a lot of thanks to my sister because she said to me, like, I think you should start dating, but not to meet anybody. This was like 3 months after I had left the relationship, which is very, very soon and really, really, really unlike me, because I was like, I don't want to meet anyone. I'm not interested. I want to be on my own. But she was like, just try it. Like, I'm not saying you have to meet like the love of your life. Like, just do it for your own confidence. Like, you've never really dated before. You're going to meet people that aren't right for you, but unless you do it, you're not going to know. So like, just give it a go. And so we did. We set up Hinge.
I love we set up Hinge.
My God, I'm a twin. She was like, I owe her a lot in my life. But yeah, I was working fully like remotely from home as well. And I now work in mental health. So I was working as a mental health medical secretary at the time. And I really threw myself into work. And I think that also gave me a lot of purpose. I think that's a good word as well as purpose, is finding what is your purpose? Like, what is it that you want to take out of life? So yeah, I had a job in like the mental health field, which was very kind of reaffirming for me, that it was the purpose driven side of things, doing more stuff that I wanted to do and that I enjoyed, like seeing friends. I lived in Ibiza for like 2 months as well. That was like, or that was when I was kind of leaving the relationship, so that I'm going back a little bit, but just doing all of these things.
Yeah. Just FYI for anyone listening, she wasn't living in Ibiza raving. It was more of a healing, the other side of the island.
Yeah. Go to the peaceful side, go to like the meditative side, and you'll love it. I don't go raving. Yeah, like just doing all of these things that I never got the opportunity to do. And on, like, for me, right, being like, I want to see my friends and I want to spend as much time with them as possible. You know, when I was in the previous relationship I was in, I'd be treading on eggshells 24/7 because I'd be worried to like come home. Or he'd say to me, what time are you coming home? And if I wasn't home at that exact time, there'd be trouble, you know, we'd have an argument. And to be free of all of that, the burden and the cloud of somebody else dictating your life was just the most liberating thing I've ever felt in my life. And that kind of spurred me on to be interested in dating, to be like, maybe people do exist. That I needed like confirmation that people did exist that weren't like that, because when you're in that bubble for so long, that's all you know and that's all you think. So it's like dating for me was like confirmation that there is more out there. And I think I only went on 2 dates before I met Ben, which is hilarious for me because I am so not that person. Like, I'm not that dating person at all. And funnily enough, the reason why I met Ben, he lives in a different county, right? So a county I've like never been to. And my radius wasn't, before we matched, my radius wasn't stretched to like, as far as where he lives. And I wasn't having much luck. I was like matching people, but I was just so not like, this is just awful. Like, Hinge is not fun for me. I don't enjoy that whole side of things. It's really exhausting, like constantly having to repeat yourself. And Jess, my sister, said to me, like, why don't you just expand your radius? Like, you never know. Just do it by like, I can't remember, 10 kilometers or whatever. And then the day I did that, I matched with Ben. And on my Hinge profile, it said, you're most compatible. And we started speaking and we literally exchanged about 3 messages on Hinge before I was like, can we just talk on WhatsApp? Because I was just like not messing around. We spoke on WhatsApp, which turned into phone calls, which turned into FaceTimes, which is so not like me. But actually, FaceTiming before we met was amazing because when we did meet, it was like we'd known each other the whole time. And I remember coming away like from the first date thinking like, actually, I called my sister and I was like, I spoke a lot about trauma and grief and anxiety. Like, I'm a really, really depressing person. She said to me, like, she was like, no, you're not. Like, that's just you. That's your life experience. And that's the right person will understand that and will actually listen.
I was just thinking, like, the fact that you felt comfortable enough to go into those
Exactly.
spaces and the fact that he could hold the space for that
Yeah.
was probably a pretty good indicator of like the energy between you two.
Yeah, exactly. So I came away with that notion of like, oh my God, I'm so depressing. Like, no one's going to want to no one's going to want to date someone who talks about like grief and, you know, anxiety and deep stuff 24/7. But it was so good what she said to me because she was like, no, but that's just you and the right person will accept that. And he so did because like we met again like literally 2 days later. And there was just something where I just felt like I had known him my whole life. And the literally, as they say, the rest is history.
Amazing. Amazing. And I'd love to hear, like, it's beautiful to hear how that relationship kind of came together. And like, as you said, yeah, getting ready to get married next year, which is super exciting. Where do you feel like women's health fits into this part of your story?
Like that I'm actually accepted for who I am now. Like I feel emotional saying that. I genuinely do because sometimes this might sound really like cliche, but I can't believe my life. But actually, like this has nothing to do. Like, you know, I love Ben dearly. Don't get me wrong, but actually, like it doesn't have a lot to do with him. It's me. I should be proud of. It's like I've put the work in, and I can't quite believe that like this is now my life. That I've done pretty much like a 360, and that I'm now like getting married. And I just never thought that that would be my life. And actually, it's like, well done, me, you know, like I've put all these measures in place to better my life. And nobody said that to me. Like, oh, don't get me wrong. Like for years, I had people say to me that I wasn't in the right relationship and you don't see yourself. And you know, deep down, but you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have been in these types of relationships who know deep in their gut that something isn't right. And it's only when it kind of actually makes you ill that you leave. But I'm yeah, just the one thing I'm taking from it is that I'm just so bloody proud of myself. I really am. It's taking control and it's being like, I'm living a life for me. Like I said, like my dad, like never got to experience a life being like a granddad. I've got a niece and a nephew now who are 7 and 4. My dad didn't have a choice, you know, he got that cruelly taken from him. But I have a choice. We have a choice to live our life to the full. And that is like, that is what I want to do. And like, thank God I now can do that.
Gosh, just like, I feel like I need to sink into that for a moment. So beautiful.
But it's true when you break it down into those granular details, it's like, why have I actually chosen to do this? And I think when you go through trauma or you have kind of quite a big life experience at a relatively young age, you know, I was a teenager still. I think your brain doesn't fully form until you're like 25 or something. I can't remember the exact stats, but when you're so trauma informed and trauma led, like throughout the rest of your life, which I'm always going to be, don't get me wrong, it does kind of force you to like do these things and make these big decisions. So it's not easy, but I'm here to tell the tale that like good things like do come. Like it really does. Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah,
It's
It is
possible.
possible.
Yeah, two things I want to share. One thing I love that actually someone who did my tarot once told me this, but it's always stayed with me, which is people who bring new conversations to the table. So things that like women's health and talking about your past relationship, you hold up a torch, right? You're holding up a torch to show you've taken the steps first, and you're holding up a torch so that people can follow, so that your experiences can help others who maybe are feeling something similar, feeling lost, and you show them the way. And I just, when you've been speaking, I just really feel like that. And I, obviously it's deeply sad that you did lose your dad. And it is so sad that a lot of how you feel has to come from that. But I think just that mentality of like, we don't have to live like this. Not everyone gets to live a full life is a really powerful reminder. Even if that, for anyone listening, even if that doesn't directly relate to your life, like just be grateful that you haven't had to experience that, but you still have the power to decide. And not everyone does.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, like it's a journey. It's not easy. I'm very much on a journey. What I would say is like living with is a chronic condition, like PMDD, women's health issues. They are chronic conditions, right? And you learn to manage them and you learn what works for you and what doesn't. But it's also a hell of a journey. And it's like sometimes you feel like you've got your shit together and that like you're really proud of yourself and whatever. But at those times when you don't feel like that, your brain plays tricks on us. And we all know this, like your brain can play tricks that you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not clever enough, you haven't got enough friends, you haven't got enough hobbies, like you don't do enough with your life. When those times come and your brain plays tricks on you like that, just try and remember to yourself about all the things you've done in the past to get to where you are now, and don't let your brain like tell you otherwise. And I am still on that journey, like very much so. Yesterday I had an awful day. Like even going to the post office felt like effort for me. Like for most people, they wouldn't even think about, oh, I need to go to the post office to return a parcel, just get up and go. But for me, like it took 2 hours for me to get out my house and go to the post office, I'm just trying to say that life is not linear. And obviously we have so much to be grateful for, but if you're not feeling good, like that's also okay. Like it's also okay to just stay at home and to like watch a movie and do nothing. Like there is so much in doing nothing. And I think that's a big thing for us to take is like, sometimes just stop, like just slow down. Just stop making all those plans. Like stop feeling like you have to do everything all the time. Because until you stop, you won't know what you actually need.
Oh, that is just such spot on advice. I actually was recording something for Instagram on this yesterday, which is like sometimes like it is great to do the things and equip yourself and like, but as I think we've been talking about, like cyclical and like, even really builds into like very began at the start of this conversation around seasons and stuff. Like we are not meant to just go, go, go. And if you are someone, and I have been so like this, particularly in my 20s, who was like, more of everything, do more, be more, bigger, better. You are not stopping long enough to hear how you actually feel and what you actually want. And sometimes we get so scared of hearing that we just keep going. So I think, yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that into the conversation, that dimension. And before we start to like draw our conversation to a close, and just and recognizing you are obviously just speaking from your experience, if there are any women listening, or maybe even men and partners of women or friends of women who are like, I just don't know where to begin to start like understanding myself more, whether that is like, whether you want to go specific into like women's health and cycle, or just what to do next, like, is there anything from you can speak to from your experience about where people could just start?
Yeah. I would say write it down, especially those times where you do feel like you're turning psycho and going crazy. Like, write it down. There is so much to say for journaling, because sometimes, I don't know what it does, but the minute you put something on paper, it takes it out of your brain and you reread it and you think, well, that's not true. Or, well, I know I'm not like that. But for some reason, the differentiation between it being stuck in your head to being on paper is, for me, it really helps. Therapy, I know it's not accessible for everyone, but if you can, again, like I was mentioning earlier, like having that anchor of when you've had a difficult day, a difficult conversation, a difficult moment, putting it in your box and taking it to therapy. It's someone who doesn't know you, can't assume anything, they cannot judge you because they don't know you. They've got nothing to go off. And there is something so powerful in that. And you come away with fresh perspective and fresh ideas. So if you can, therapy is unbelievable. And I think the final thing I want to say is that it's okay to like not feel good, for partners of people who suffer with PMDD, anxiety, whatever. Like, you don't need to say anything. You don't need to try and make situations better. You don't need to say things like, oh, you'll be fine. Like, just be there. You can just sit there in silence and just let them say whatever, be whatever, do whatever, cry, scream, whatever. And that's enough. Like, that really is enough. And I think that's the 3 things I would say.
Stunning. Yeah, I think, yeah, completely with you there. What I found so beautiful about this conversation, and such a thread actually, like through the entirety, is your self power is the only way I can describe it. Like, I'm so lucky to like know you on a personal level, but to know, obviously I didn't know you when you were considering not going to uni, and just, I think there's this deep knowing within you that has not always been as accessible as you've acknowledged, but I can feel that as you talk, like you deeply knew, you went against the grain. You're like, I'm not going to uni. Like, this just isn't working for me. You spent the years like figuring out what you wanted to do. You call it portfolio career, call it whatever. You might have had times where you disconnected, but you found yourself again. You really attuned, you got to know yourself, and that self-power just really rings true. And it's just such an honor to hear you speak so vulnerably about your experiences and how now you're claiming a new space and like, I'm in this space. I want to spread the word. It's important that people know what this means.
Yeah, it's true. And also to say that, like, you might feel connected right now, but if you feel disconnected again in the near future, that's also okay. Like, that's something I really want to get across. It's like, life doesn't work in the ways that we always want it to. But it's just trying to just be at one with like, oh, I'm not okay, and that's okay. And that's, for me, that's just really powerful.
So I'm not okay, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's been I feel like we've been on a journey in this conversation in and of itself. And it's been great. And I know before we started recording, we said kind of like, oh, we're just not sure where this is going to go. And I love that we've just allowed it to kind of graze and form on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have one question that I ask everyone at the end of an episode, which I'd love to ask you, which is, what would you say to that past version of you standing right on the edge of the defining moment?
Oh God, that's deep. That it will work out. It will. Like, right now, you'll be the lowest you'll ever be, and you'll feel like everyone has got their shit together except you. But you're doing this for a reason, and remember that reason, that you're doing it for you, and that is so powerful in itself.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Give me goosebumps again.
And thank you for allowing me to speak as well. And I'm just like forever grateful for our friendship. And I think it's so special that we're still friends after all these years. And that's saying something, isn't it, about how authentic like we can both be with each other. And it's hard to find sometimes. So I'm grateful for you as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I completely right back at you. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so glad we actually managed to record it this time.
Me too.
And thank you for coming on and sharing, like I said, so vulnerably, sharing your defining moment and giving space where hopefully people who are listening can relate, can feel uplifted, energized by everything that you've shared. So yeah, it's been beautiful having you on.
Thank you.
And until next time, thank you and bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Define. I hope this story reminded you of your own strength, your own shifts, your own becoming. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and journey on. Hi again, it's Maddie, time traveling directly into your ears to give you a gentle nudge to get in on the knowing. The waitlist is open and you'll find the link in the show notes. Go on, I'll see you there.